How did you first meet them?
I met them in a discotheque. They came in there and everybody went so quiet. They had a disco, or sort of bar disco in Knightsbridge in a cellar. And I remember going down there and seeing them. Once I had dinner with Barbara Windsor and she knew them and they were in the same restaurant. So I met them about three or four times, but I tried very heartily not to become a close friend because they were scary. They were scary.
What sort of people would be around them most of the time?
People who didn't want to die.
Right. So you had to not relax fully.
No, they weren't a relaxing couple to be with. Quite honestly, and I grew up in the Elephant and Castle. There was an Elephant and Castle gang, which was as fierce as them, and I knew them very well. So I thought, I know enough gangsters. I don't really. I just want to be an actor, you know, and be quite simple and quiet. And I'm not going to hit anybody or slash anybody with a razor.
You think about the gangs that you portrayed in films and the ones that you knew in your real life. What were the biggest differences? It's
according to were they bosses? Were they ordinary gangsters? Were they assassins? Three very different types of people, and I played all three. And they have a completely different personality. The ordinary gangster never stops talking, you know? And the assassin never says anything. And the gang boss speaks a lot. And when he does, you better bloody listen.
Do you think they have a different sense of morality? Like, did Jack Carter just have a different sense of what was moral?
Oh, absolutely. They are so powerful that they are right. And you are wrong. That's what it is about that.
Those morals give you a lot to play with in acting a part like that.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful for me. Yeah. Because I knew my man, I knew how to do it, you know.
You would see him sitting in his armchair and he'd be like this. He'd be chain smoking and he'd be popping these heavy pills and scowling. He used to scowl a lot. And if somebody said something, it'd be like a general conversation going on. And if he wanted to listen to one particular person, he'd shut up, you. And now you knew it was time to shut up. Because, see, with Ronnie, you could say to him one day, time to go down the caravan or something, you look like you're putting on a bit of weight. That'd be okay. You could say exactly the same thing tomorrow. And you would have to fight for your life.
How much has this trial cost you?
It's cost us roughly £8,000.
And how do you feel about that?
I don't suppose anyone likes the idea of spending that money for no reason at all, you know.
Does it leave you broke, or how does it leave you? It
doesn't leave us broke, but at the same time it's a lot of money to have to pay out when money's innocent, you know.
A lot of people have got the impression from this trial that Clubland, London, is very tough. Do you think it is? You run a couple of clubs.
Well, in all clubs you get an occasional drunk, you know, and sometimes have to be slung out, and that's why there's doormen and that, but I suppose it's like Clubland all over the world, really. It's just the same as... I don't suppose it can be that bad as people won't go to them, really, would they?
Ronald, what do you think about Clubland in London?
Well, I think most clubs are very respectable, you know, and I don't think there's any trouble at all in them, except occasionally.
Can you tell me why, during the trial, you didn't give evidence?
Well, we was advised by legal people not to give evidence.
Why was that?
Well, the law of this country is well established. The onus is on the prosecution to prove its case. Counsel for these two men and the third defendant were quite satisfied in their own mind, as I in my own humble way was as well, that the prosecution had not proved their case, and there was no obligation on these men to go and make any answer to any of the allegations against them.
What are you going to do now that it's all over?
I like to have a bit of family life now, you know. I intend to get married in the near future. I did before this case, but it's put back over the case, and I should get married as soon as possible, you know.
Well, what are you going to do now?
Well, I'd like to go abroad for a short while, and then I'd like to be left alone.
A lot of people stole things because they were hungry. They had no other means to live. I know people say, oh, well, other people got out the East End and they made it. It's not like that for everybody. I mean, some people are more brainy than others. They have more chances. And in your life, you mean to go one way and you're pulled another. It's not the individual's fault all the time.
The Krays had got something about them that was almost indefinable. To say that they were personalities is wrong because they projected an aura of evil, of power. They would resort to violence at the slightest provocation to establish a reputation. And this they did very, very successfully, so that not only foreigners and people that intruded into the East End, but members of their own gang respected them because of that violence.
But if the Krays were so evil, why did the community in which they lived put up with them for so long? In London's poorer quarters, the line between right and wrong had long been blurred. Many of life's simple pleasures were outlawed by the state. Late-night drinking, card and dice games, and off-course betting.
I mean, I lived in a place called South Grove Buildings. It was a big old block of flats. There was at least 3 bookmakers in there, used to take the bets. And they all got a living. And all of a sudden they might say to my dad, Barney, my dad's name, Barney, got to nick you today. So it'd be his turn to get nicked. They'd take him to court. Illegal bookmaking, street bookmaking, might get found a fiver.
The East End contained many illegal drinking and gambling clubs, which were frequently targeted by the police.
People were in there playing cards, and then the police would raid it. They'd take them to the police station, have to appear in court next morning, get fined 10 shillings, 5, whatever it was in them days. And that's where the people thought, what are we doing wrong? All we're doing is playing cards. We're not doing anything wrong. And they're arresting us. And so they lost their respect for them.
Down the East End, the police were sort of natural enemies in some extent. And people didn't come running in with information unless it was to their benefit.
Because there was so little respect for the law itself, many East Enders were unwilling to call on the police to investigate even serious crimes.
They're a community of their own. They've lived hard, they've had a hard time, but it was their ethics and a code of honour that you didn't normally grasp.
But this code of honour exposed the community to exploitation by professional criminals who turned it to their own advantage. In the East End, the law that was enforced was often the law of the Kray twins, Ronnie and Reggie.
The twins ran that part of London like an iron rod. There was nothing that went on in that East End that they didn't know about. If there was a wrongdoing, get off the manor, because they would come down on you like a ton of bricks.
Well, you know, they keep saying about protection. They was running the protection racket. It wasn't actually like it sounds. They would go into a place and say, if you don't give me we'll look after you. If you don't pay this, you'll be in trouble and all that. The people actually used to go to them and want them to look after it and let it be known that they was looking after a place. They wasn't actually, I suppose it is a protection racket in a way, but it was worked on a different basis. People used to go to them and ask them to look after them.
There were lots of people that were walking into pubs that were taking a lot of money in those days. Remember, we were talking about the early 60s when live music and good entertainment was throughout the East End, throughout every part of London. And protection money was being asked for. And therefore, rather than pay 3, 4, 5, 10 bullies, it's better to go and ask Ronnie and Reggie Kray, could you just appear for 10 minutes or have 1 or 2 drinks in our pub on a Saturday night? Once it was known as a pub that the Krays used, then that publican didn't have any more trouble.
They only went into people that were breaking the law. You know, like if you had a publican who was having a laugh-to-timer, then they could go into him. Or if they had a club where they were doing illegal gambling, dice, spieling or something like that, they would go into them. They want their whack. But no way could they ever go into straight people, because first, if they come into you, the first thing you do is pick the phone up, give it to the police, and that was it. So the only people they could intimidate were people that couldn't phone the police.